Okay, so today, at long last, we are going to be reviewing this book, 13 Reasons Why, by Jay Asher. I know a lot of you have been hanging out for this review for a little while now, but time just has not permitted until this point. So, let's get right into it. For those of you who have not seen my reviews before, I have two sections in my reviews. The first section is spoiler-free, where I give you 3 pros and 3 cons about the book in a spoiler-free way, and then we get into the spoiler section where I can either gush or rant to my heart's content about the book in a spoilery way. So let's jump into the spoiler-free section, starting off with 3 cons about this book. It's really tough for me to give you 3 cons about this book because it is a really, really good book. I think one of the only cons I can give you is that the book to me isn't long enough. I wish there was more. And Jay Asher has gone on record, the author of this book, Jay Asher, has gone on record as saying that he will not be doing a sequel. There will not be any more 13 Reasons Why books coming out from him. And I'm a bit disappointed by that. I wish there was either a second book or that this book was like double the length because I just found it to be really, really good. However, so that will be my first spoiler-free con about this book. My second spoiler-free con about this book will be trigger warnings. So I don't believe that there are trigger warnings anywhere written. I'm just having a look. No, there are no trigger warnings within this book, and there should be. For those of you who have not heard anything about 13 Reasons Why, the premise of this book is that it follows a boy on the cover. This is the actor who plays him in the TV show. A boy by the name of Clay Jensen, who one day finds a box that has been delivered to his front door with his name on it. He opens the box, and inside that box is a shoebox, and inside that shoebox are cassette audio tapes. So he has no idea who they're from, there's no note. He ends up going into his garage, and because his father has a stereo that has that can play cassette tapes, and when he puts in the first one, the voice of Hannah Baker is coming through, and Hannah Baker, who is this girl here, who looks like a ghost, and there's a reason why she does. Hannah Baker is a former classmate of Clay Jensen's, who 2 weeks prior to him receiving these tapes, killed herself. She committed suicide. So, in saying that, there is your first trigger warning about this book. This book heavily deals with teen suicide. If that is something that might trigger you, I want you to be warned before you go in. This book also deals with teen sexual assault. The book itself uses the R word, but we can't use that word on YouTube anymore. I mean, freedom of speech, but I'll just let it go. We can't use the R word here. We're not allowed to. But the R word is used in this book, and there are 2 separate incidents involving teen sexual assault in the book, so you do need to be warned about that. Yeah, there are other things that come up in the book, but I don't think they're so trigger worthy. But the fact that the book doesn't have trigger warnings is something that I do view as a con, because I think any book that might trigger anyone, there should be a warning for it. Now, in saying that, the adapted TV show, which this book became, this book was adapted into a TV show, 13 Reasons Why. It is found on Netflix, and this book is adapted into season 1 of that show, because there are 4 seasons. Because it's now finished. There were 4 seasons of that show that was created. This book is only covering season 1. With season 1, there are warnings. Written warnings at the start of every episode that there may be triggers, so that is there. And then from season 2 onwards, the cast were actually putting warnings out there themselves, so that's good, but it's not here in the book. Yeah, so my second con is there are no trigger warnings. My third con for this book is, I don't know. I don't think I can give a third con. I wish there was a whole lot more. So let's talk about my 3 pros for this book, and my first pro for this book is Okay, I'm gonna continue on with the premise before I talk about these three pros, the spoiler-free premise. So, Clay is listening to that first tape from Hannah Baker, and Hannah says there's always 13 sides to every story, and there's 13 reasons why I killed myself. She doesn't say it that way, but basically that's what she's saying. There are 13 reasons why I killed myself, and on each side of a cassette tape is a reason. So on one cassette tape, the first one, you have tape 1, and then turn it over to the other side, you have tape 2, so on and so forth. There are 13 sides and 13 reasons why she killed herself. I love the idea of this premise. I am going to talk more in the spoiler section because I know there are some who really object to the book and the film, so I will talk more there. But for the sake of the spoiler-free side, but I love the idea of this premise. Someone leaving these messages behind to explain what was going on. I think it's something that I've never seen before, and I think that the idea is very original, and I really appreciated that. And I'm not going to go further than that until the spoiler section. My second pro for this book is Clay Jensen and his character arc throughout the book. He learns so much about Hannah Baker by the time we're done with this book that it changes him as a person, and I feel like he has grown a lot owing to everything that he has learned. My third pro for this book is that Jay Asher is not afraid to go there, in line with my second con for this book, in that there's no trigger warnings. I appreciate that Jay Asher is taking a no holds bar, a no holds bar. I can't think of the word. Approach. No holds bar approach to this book, and yeah, he is not afraid to go all in with whatever subject matter it is that he's dealing with, and I really appreciate that. This book deals with heavy topics, but despite the fact that it deals with heavy topics, it is shining a very bright, glaring light onto things that are swept under the carpet, generally speaking, and I really appreciated that. So I ended up giving this book 5 stars. It is a YA, young adult contemporary, and I just really, really appreciated it. So yeah, those are my 3 pros and 3 cons in a spoiler-free way. If this is motivating you to pick up the book, then yeah, pick it up and let me know what you think. But I really appreciated it and enjoyed it. I will say that there was a time in my life where had I read this book, I would have really struggled reading it because certain things might have hit a little close to home. I'm not going to say what they are, but certain things might have hit a little close to home. But now I'm in a space where I can read this book and not have it trigger me. And because of that, I really appreciated the book for what it was. All right, let's go into the spoiler section now. So for those of you who have not read this book and you don't want to be spoiled, I completely understand, and I'll see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Those of you who are going to join me for this spoiler section, I'll see you over there in just a moment. Okay, so there is a lot to say when it comes to the spoiler version of this book. I am going to be including little things from the TV show as well, because I first saw the TV show, in fact, I saw the entire TV series, Season 1, Episode 1, all the way through to the final episode of Season 4 before I picked up this book, so I had seen the whole thing. This book only relates to Season 1. Season 2 onwards was something completely new that the writers of the show came up with, and it does not feature at all in this book. Also, because it was adapted into a TV series as opposed to a film, there are massive differences that do occur. The biggest difference that obviously those who have read the book and seen the show will note right away is that in the book, Clay Jensen listens to all the tapes in one night. In the TV show, because it is a TV show and we need to last for a whole season, Clay Jensen takes the entire season to get through all the tapes, which the season spans many, 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 many days. So there's a very big difference there. So while in the book, he takes the night to listen to the tapes. The only person that he interacts with, or actually he interacts with two people. I think the first one's Marcus, if I remember his name correctly, but yeah, that one. The one that was going to date Hannah because of the dollar Valentine. I think his name's Marcus. And he also meets up with Tony, I think about halfway through listening to the tapes in the book, where in the show, Clay listens to the first tape, goes back to school the next day, starts interacting with whoever was on the first tape and getting really upset with them, then listens to the next tape, goes back to school and interacts with those people, and there's a whole lot more that happens. We also get to experience more about the characters, the classmates that Hannah Baker is talking about and their side of things. For a long time, a lot of them are saying Hannah is lying and there's two sides to every story, until we get to the end of the first season and realize that Hannah was not lying. But anyway, and we get to, as the TV series develops, we get to know a whole lot more about all these different characters, and they all go through massively impressive character arcs as far as I'm concerned. Don't get me started on the series finale, because I have words, because I'm not happy about the series finale, but I'll let that go because this review is about the book. I just want to make very quick comparisons before I do move on. Now, next thing I want to talk about is the fact that I almost flew through this book in one night, and I had to literally force myself to put the book down so that I could have it last over the course of 2 days. There would have been nothing wrong with me finishing it in one day or in one night like Clay does with his tapes, but I wanted to be able to go to bed that night, wake up next day, and still have more of this book to read. And so because of that, and only because of that, I put it back down. But otherwise, it was so easy to fly past the goal I had for that day and to just keep right on reading. I found myself very zoned into this book, and some books I experience that with, others I can get very distracted from, and then there are others where sometimes I'm fully immersed in the book and sometimes I'm distracted from it. But whenever I was reading this book, I was so zoned in that literally everything else just melted away. And honestly, it did not concern me because of just how zoned in I was with this book. Personally, I think that this book is very well written, and I really appreciated having the opportunity to listen to this girl yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you my opinion on the whole scandal and drama revolving around the show and the book in a minute, but just giving you my opinion of the book on its own, first of all. I really appreciated hearing not only the voice, but all of these stories and reasons from Hannah Baker as to why she killed herself. I think this was, for a fictional book, I think it was such an intriguing premise. It was something I've never seen before, and I've heard so many people in one way or another, when someone has killed themselves, say, why? Why did this happen? Why did they do this? What were they not telling us? And even though Hannah Baker did kill herself, and that's probably the biggest spoiler, because I went into this book for some reason thinking that Hannah didn't kill herself in the book version. She did, though. She is dead. What ended up happening was Jay Asher originally was going to have it that Hannah Baker ended up surviving her suicide and she ended up living at the end of the book, but then he decided that it would not have as powerful an impact if she survived. So he then went and changed his original idea to make sure that she remained dead. Also, can we quickly point out the difference between the way she commits suicide in the show and the way she commits suicide in the book? In the show, it is extremely graphic, and this is part of the reason why there was such a massive uproar. So I can say it in words, but I'm definitely not going to be showing you the scene because, one, it's too scandalous, and two, it's very graphic. So in the show, Hannah Baker has decided she is going to kill herself. So she gets into the bathtub and she cuts herself. And it is really, really, really graphic. The actress who plays Hannah Baker, and I can't remember her name at the moment, but the actress who plays Hannah Baker is Australian. Shout out to Australia. She did so well. But she's such an amazing actress because I felt so much watching that really powerful scene. But in the book, she does not cut herself. That's not how she dies. In the book, she overdoses on medication. Her parents are pharmacists, so it makes more sense to me that that's what happened because she has access to medication. It's so easy for her to steal medicine and take it. And so that's where it's more plausible for Jay Asher with his original ending that she overdoses, her parents take her to hospital, they're able to pump it out of her, and she survives. That makes more sense than if she cut herself, she bleeds out, and then she survives. So I just wanted to explain the difference and how it's also plausible that she could have survived. Alright. So, one thing I don't like about this book that I do love about the show is that because Clay Jensen listens to all the tapes in one night and the final chapter is the next day, when he goes to school to give the tapes to Mr. Porter, the counselor, because he's the next person and the last person on the tapes, Clay does not really interact with anyone aside from Tony, and those moments, those little moments he has with Marcus, he doesn't interact with anyone else. In the show, he gets to talk to them. I really appreciate him talking to Jessica, especially because of everything she went through. I really appreciate the character arc that Clay Jensen and Justin Foley go through in the show. We don't get to see this in the book, so I feel that the show not only took from this book what it needed to, but also developed it in adding extra things that really added to the original content, the original book. All right, let's talk about the scandal because we don't have a lot of time, and I need to touch upon this. So, last week, I put up a post on Passion for Books, which is a group that I'm a part of on Facebook. Go check them out. They're amazing. Anyway, letting everyone know that I was going to be doing this review, and if anyone wanted to comment on the scandals revolving around 13 Reasons Why, the show, the book, or both, to let me know in the comment section below, and I would discuss that here, leaving names anonymous and just reading out everyone's comments. I've decided to forego that and not include that in the video because I didn't get a lot of responses, but to those who did respond to that post, I do want to say thank you, and I appreciated hearing your comments. So, in short, there are a lot of things that people have issues with when it comes to this show and when it comes to this book, and we'll discuss them in just a moment. The biggest issue that people, especially conservative people, tend to have with the book and the show is that it either glamorizes, glorifies, or both suicide. I wholeheartedly disagree with this. I don't see how. And I did a lot of research too to try and work out how people think this glamorizes or glorifies suicide because I just don't see it at all. And every piece of information that I found where people were explaining why they think it glamorizes or glorifies suicide, in my mind I was thinking, but no, that's not what happened. And I got very... I should do a video where I'm responding to what people have said. But anyway, that will come another day. If you guys want it, let me know in the comments below. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't feel that this glorifies or glamorizes suicide in any way, regardless of whether it is the book or the show. Now, let's talk about the book because with the show, we can talk about, in a moment, we'll talk about how Hannah kills herself by cutting herself. We'll talk about that. And if that's what people are saying glamorizes or glorifies suicide, I will discuss that in a moment. But for the sake of the book, she doesn't do that. She takes pills. She overdoses. Now, I don't see how it glamorizes or glorifies suicide. Hannah Baker is going to kill herself. She's resolute in her decision. Anything and everything she's tried to do to stop herself from thinking this is ruined for 13 different reasons, and she decides that she's going to kill herself. That's locked in. She's definitely going to do that, and now she's going to record 13 different reasons on audio cassettes as to why she's going to kill herself so that people know. I don't think that glamorizes or glorifies suicide in any way, shape, or form. I think it's wonderful. The amount of people who want to know why people kill themselves and they don't get that answer. And then, and then to have it happen here, I think is a great premise for a fictional story, because we also have to keep that in mind as well. The story is fictional, the show is fictional. Excuse me, it may be based off of things that actually do happen, and so there is a greater message for the book and for the show, but both of them are fictional. So why are people getting on their high horse about a fictional book and a fictional show in the first place? I don't know. And if you don't like the show or you don't like the book, don't read it, don't watch it, the end, as far as I'm concerned. But since people are going there and sticking their nose into places of something that is fictional, I'm going to respond. And yes, I'm a little bit angry, if you can't tell, because I don't get it. I don't think in any way the book or the show, well, to stick with the book, I don't think the book glamorizes or glorifies suicide, because in no way is the book saying you should kill yourself. It's not doing that, whether directly or indirectly. Hannah Baker did kill herself. She killed herself before the book even started, and Clay Jensen is listening to reasons why she did. I don't see how this glamorizes or glorifies suicide. I don't see it at all. So, because to me, if you're going to say that something glamorizes or glorifies something, you are trying to, you're making a point, in my opinion, you're making a point that it makes something enticing to do. I love this book. I love the first season of the show, which is what is directly taken from the book. It did not motivate me to want to kill myself. So I don't think it glamorizes or glorifies suicide in any way. No, I think it's something different. It's a premise that I've never seen before, and it was good to see why she did. But I do not believe for a moment that it encourages people to kill themselves. No. Just my opinion. Feel free to sound off in the comment section below, but I don't think so. And to anyone who does think so, don't read the book, don't watch the show. You don't need to make a big hoopla out of something that you're concerned about, where you have the choice to not read the book or watch the show in the first place. So why are you making such a big deal? In saying that, Jay Asher wrote this book to draw attention to suicide, sexual assault, all the things that Hannah Baker did go through, because it's usually swept under the carpet. And for that, I say, well done, Jay Asher. It is swept under the carpet, and it is something that should be talked about. Now, I will say that many, many years ago, I was studying at a university for a counselling degree, and one of my very first classes, modules, whatever you want to call it, that I had, the teacher was saying there are no silly questions, ask any question you want to ask. And one day I brought up, we were doing grief and loss counselling as a module. I brought up the topic of suicide. I said, look, can we discuss suicide? Because obviously one of the ways that we lose people is through suicide. So can we discuss that? The teacher very politely said to me, can you see me after class? We'll discuss that then. And I said, okay. I thought it was an open forum, thinking to myself, but okay. Anyway, long story short, the class ended and I spoke to the teacher and she said, I'm so sorry that I had to say that to you, but do you know that suicide is actually a taboo topic in this country and we are not actually allowed to talk about it in class, which to me makes no sense. I was born and raised in Australia, but my mother is Dutch, so my mother's side comes from the Netherlands, and over there they are very open with so many different things. So I was born and raised in a culture, my mother's culture, to be very open to discuss many different things to do with many different things, including death. Like, I mean, my mum and I, we've spoken about things we would want to have happen at our funeral, and it hasn't mattered to us because it's something that we just talk about. Like, so maybe I'm just different because that's my culture that I was raised with, that you can talk about anything and everything and you don't have to censor anything. But to me, I think suicide is something that should be spoken about. I think it will assist people to, as Jay Asher is trying to make the point of, see the signs and all those kind of things. But also, it will help everyone to handle it a lot better if you're talking about it rather than pushing it under the rug. I understand that it's very tough to deal with the fact that we have teenagers who commit suicide. I do understand that that is incredibly, incredibly tough to deal with. But in saying that, unless we talk about this stuff, it is going to continue to be shoved under the carpet, and that's not going to help anyone. So that's my 2 cents on that topic. Now let's quickly talk about some of the scandals and drama of the show. Obviously, starting off, we're talking about Hannah's death scene. So, in the book, we don't experience Hannah doing anything. All we experience is Hannah talking about what has happened to her as she's recording these tapes. In the show, we actually see these things occur. And Hannah kills herself right at the end of season 1. So Clay has heard all the tapes, and Hannah has, she's left the counselor guy, and he just hasn't helped her at all. So that's it. She decides she's going to kill herself. She goes home. She organizes everything so the tapes can go to whoever they're meant to go to. And then she gets into the bathtub and starts cutting herself. This is an extremely graphic scene, and it was very hard for me to deal with because of just how real it seemed. The girl who plays Hannah Baker is an amazing actress. But I appreciate that the show wanted to show what happened. There was a lot of talk about this, about how this shouldn't be on TV and people shouldn't see it. I understand slightly because it is very graphic and very hard to watch, especially for someone like me who doesn't watch horror at all anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore because it wigs me out. So, that was hard to watch too. But in saying that, I don't see why people were campaigning to get that scene taken away from the show, because it takes away the integrity of the show. The show is talking about a girl who committed suicide, and now it's showing her committing suicide. So I don't understand why we have to go against the integrity of the show, showing the whole point of the show. I don't get that. In saying that, those who protested won, because now on Netflix you don't see that scene. It's not there anymore. It has now been blocked and you can't watch it anymore. And I'm a little offended by that. In saying that, if people out there are saying that the show glorifies and glamorizes suicide because of that scene in the show, then yes, I can neutrally understand where they're coming from. I can disagree with them, but I can also understand where they're coming from, because it's a scene that is showing how to commit suicide. So if there are people who watch this scene who have thought about committing suicide before and they go, oh, this is how I can do it, and that motivates them, yes, I can neutrally see how it does. For me, when I watched it, it freaked me out so much that I don't want to commit suicide anyway, but that was my last thought. My first thought was, oh, how painful is that? And oh, why would you do that? So for me, it was a turn off from it, but I can neutrally see how some people might be motivated to do it, learning how to do it that way. Another thing people brought up is that they don't, in the show, excuse me one moment, in the show they don't talk too much about ways to deal with if you're feeling depressed or feeling suicidal. Okay, again, I go back to it's fiction. The book and the show may be based on things that actually happen, but the book and the show are fictional. So if you're reading the book or watching the show for the sake of you are suicidal and you're wanting it to help you, I would say don't, because that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is not to stop someone from being suicidal. The point of the show is to tell Hannah Baker's story. And so, yeah, in saying that, the show does have warnings for every single episode in some way, shape, or form, saying this can be very triggering. Yeah, and in this episode, because it's every episode, this episode contains this subject matter. So if that triggers you, you might not want to watch it, or you might want to watch it with a trusted friend, parent, or guardian, and then open up a dialogue with them. But yeah, don't go into the book or the show if you are suicidal thinking this show is going to stop you from, not stop you, but that this show should be motivating you away from it, because that's not the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is to tell the story of Hannah Baker. Hannah killed herself, and the show and the book are called 13 Reasons Why. It is exploring the reasons why she did. So on that wavelength alone, that's what I'm saying. That is what the show is about. So the fact that they don't talk about ways to help you and all this kind of stuff, it's not a real show. It is a scripted, fictional show. In saying that, they do. 13 Reasons Why has a website that has all this information about things that you can do if you're in that situation. So they've been forced into doing a ton of things that I don't think they necessarily needed to do. That's just my opinion. Again, based on the fact that it's a fictional book and a fictional show. In saying that, I'm going to wrap this up by saying that I think what the show has done and what the book has done on a positive side of things has been to shine that light on those things that happen that people don't talk about. Either parents don't want to talk about it or don't care. I'm not judging, I'm just saying this is some of the possibilities of why they don't want to talk about it, or they don't care, or their children who are going through it don't want to talk about it, they don't care, they think their parents don't care, whatever the reason is. I think it's wonderful that we have a book and a show that goes there and says, you know what, this actually happens. No, it's not the premise. It's not the whole point of it. The whole point of it is to tell Hannah Baker's story. But the fact that they actually go there and shine a glaring light onto things that actually do happen, I think makes it very informative, and I think that that's a wonderful thing that we should be celebrating. In the end, this YA contemporary book, 13 Reasons Why, received 5 stars from me. I absolutely loved it. If you have any comments, thoughts, and or questions, please do not hesitate to let me know in the comment section below about anything at all, whether you agree with me or disagree. Happy to talk to you about it, or if you'd like to email me, my email's also in the description below. In the meantime, I'm letting you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah. I post videos every Thursday and Sunday with reviews and other videos in between, and I'll see you again soon. Bye guys. Bye. Happy reading.